All right, hello everyone. We'll give about 30 seconds here for folks to join and then we'll get started. All right, folks, we're going to go ahead and get started. Welcome to our presentation of your Windows in the Cloud, personalized, powerful, simple, and secure. Just a few quick housekeeping items. Any questions you have, please put in the chat. We will hold on answering those questions until the end of the presentation. And after the session, a recording will be made available. You should receive an email with a link to watch that on demand, as well as information to reach out to us. So for your presenters today, my name is Phil Schwan. I manage our cloud infrastructure endpoint practice at Netrix. I've been working in industry about 25 years in desktop engineering and endpoint management. And with me is Nirali. Nirali, would you like to introduce yourself?
Yes, thanks, Phil. Hi, everyone. I'm Nirali. I am from Microsoft, and I look after America's cloud and AI and endpoints partners. I've been at Microsoft for 5 years, and been in this space now for 2. So really excited to share with you what we've got.
Awesome. So for an agenda today, we're going to start off by just doing an overview of what Windows 365 is for anyone who may not be aware. We'll talk through some of the Windows 365 options in terms of the different flavors, and then we'll dig into some advanced features of Windows 365. We'll talk about how Windows 365 complements AI, how security applies to Windows 365. We'll cover a few real-world scenarios of customers who've implemented it, and then we'll wrap up with some Q&A. So with that, I will hand it over to Nirali.
Thanks, Phil. So I'd like to start by actually congratulating Netrix as one of our top partners. You're the finalist for the Partner of the Year, and that's a huge deal. We really love this partnership. We really love the support. We've been developing this new cloud PC category with Windows 365, which I'll share more about. But this has been the 4th year of this product, and it's been really great to see how you've adopted, how close you are to Microsoft engineering, partner marketing, all the teams, and it's good to see this partnership flourish over the next few years. So I'm super excited for our relationship going forward. Welcome, everybody. So for this presentation, what I thought I'd do is quickly give you a background on why Windows 365. Azure Virtual Desktop was Microsoft's platform as a service solution in the space. We have traditional VDI solution vendors as well that we partner with. We have all the space, virtualization endpoint space already ready. Why develop this cloud PC category, the feature set behind Windows 365. And then I'll go into the design principles on how we develop this product, where we're going with it. And hopefully with the advanced features that Phil will share, you'll kind of see the vision that we have with Windows 365 and overall desktop virtualization space evolving in the next few years. So if you think about the traditional VDI, it's not a new space. Endpoint virtualization has been in market now for 30 something years. We have seen over the last 30 years incremental changes that were made by traditional VDI vendors. Azure Virtual Desktop was similar. We had some incremental benefits and features that we provide and work through it. Over the last few years, though, at Microsoft, we started to also look at this category and think, this is probably ripe for innovation, where we need to think about what are the gaps, what are the challenges, and how to actually simplify the virtualization space overall. And that's really when we came up with this concept of Windows 365, which is SaaSifying this product, which is looking at our user experiences. If you look at the original user experience of traditional VDI vendors, it's very different from a traditional PC framework. Start button looks different. The way you get access to support looks different from a user perspective. It's very different, and it was kind of treated like an associated compute, where you just give a small corner in the data center. You can do your end user computing there without much thought to the end user experience. Similarly, for IT admins, it was a similar story where you have to manage this whole environment through a whole set of new tools, and you manage your traditional physical PC through a completely different set of tools with different security layers, with different way of patching, managing, and so on. So we thought, why don't we relook at this space? And this is when the concept of cloud personal computing was really born. So if you look at the traditional PC model, everything is super tightly coupled. You have a physical PC, that's your actual device. You have an operating system that's tightly coupled because it lives on the device. Then you have management software, you have security infrastructure, data, LOB apps, everything that's managed through tools like modern endpoint management tools. Maybe it's Intune, maybe it's SCCM. You might be managing also identities through Entra ID or Azure Active Directory. You have security tools to manage this traditional PC environment. But if you look at this tightly coupled environment, you're now super dependent on the device itself. So, if, case in point, right now, Windows 10 is being deprecated, for example. The way that you would migrate and modernize that traditional PC now is by buying a new device, refreshing this device to a Windows 11 device, and then you have to also make sure that the management software works with it. You probably have to redeploy user profiles, redeploy apps, make sure everything works together, and share that device back to the employee. Now, if you think about this loosely coupled model on the right hand side with Cloud PC, you have a physical device, but everything else stays in the cloud and is being streamed from the cloud. And I'm not saying that one or the other model is better, but there are certain benefits when you look at the cloud PC environment. Because now, if you have a Windows 10 device, you can still stream a Windows 11 PC directly to that user, agnostic of what that device is. It can even be a Mac. So that environment is helpful because if you think about this modernization that we're looking at for traditional VDI vendors, like this is something that's fairly interesting and new. And the other advantage is, so if I were to draw a parallel with this cloud PC and the way we're thinking about it, the latest parallel would be Exchange Online, that we also, the migration we went through a few years ago, where we had a cloud first policy and we made Exchange Online, Exchange on prem migration to Exchange Online. A lot of difficulties at that time. Migration was not easy, but the reason wasn't that it was just cloud PC, a cloud first strategy from Microsoft. There are lots of different cloud principles that come in when you move Exchange to online. You're not only getting full evergreen service, it's available, it's scalable. Those are the typical benefits of the cloud. But I would actually go and argue that Microsoft can now provide further services to Exchange Online customers. I would even argue that Copilot wouldn't be a solution if we didn't have that migration done many years ago. So I'd love for you to start thinking about the Windows 365 product platform in a similar fashion. We're migrating Windows to the cloud global. It's not just for contract workers or seasonal workers. We're thinking, what does the endpoint system need to look like? What does endpoint compute need to look like? And hopefully in the next week, when we have announcements come out at Ignite, you will see the additional features that we are providing. Windows 365 Reserve, for example. That is something that will come out next week, where you see that it's like an insurance policy. So if you have any blackouts or device theft or things that typically happen, you're not so tied down to the global supply chain issues. You can use that insurance policy, costs you less than a cup of coffee, to get that user back online in a few minutes. And those are the types of features we cannot deliver on a traditional PC model. So I'd love for you to think about this from a new category perspective, like we are. Okay, so when you think about today's work scenarios, hopefully we have more scenarios to talk about with agents and AI in the future. Right now, why are individuals looking into endpoint virtualization? Why should you be streaming the operating system directly from the cloud? Typical use cases include, you have hybrid and remote work, very, very prevalent across COVID times, where we saw a lot of demand. A lot of actual traditional VDI vendors were doing well at that time too, because it was just imperative to get the right computing employee resources in the hands of the employee wherever they were working from. That pattern has continued. Yes, there is a pattern of getting back to work in person, but that doesn't mean that everyone's going back all time, all days a week. And so we're still seeing that continue with remote workers, with traveling workers. We're also seeing a huge shift towards bring your own PC style strategy, where for seasonal workers, for I would say contract workers, there's a lot of demand. That might be also your scenario and why you're here. So you could have onboarding and offboarding of that elastic workforce wherever they're working from. At the same time, you're not tied to the device, so your company resources are not on the device itself. They're staying in cloud, safe and secure, so you can turn them on and off depending on the situation. And so those are the types of scenarios that have been in the marketplace and have been growing slowly. New ones are actually mergers and acquisition, and this is something that Windows 365 fits really well. We've seen a couple of use cases where customers acquire a new company and the acquired company need access to company resources as quickly as possible. Sometimes it takes weeks to ship them new devices, new deployment. With Windows 365 licenses, it's fairly simple. You can have a 24-hour to 48-hour turn on time for that. Similarly, high performance compute, you will see you probably have GPU requirements. We are seeing some customers too going down that path where buying your own GPU compute on your on prem data center, or maybe buying actual PCs under the desk. Those types of scenarios have been really tricky to manage as the requirement for AI development, design, and simulation software and so on increase. So high performance compute is becoming something, as well as a part of something that Phil will talk about, is the GPU SKU from Windows 365, which allow you to scale up and down your high performance computing use cases depending on when you need it, and you don't own anything, so it's also fairly easy to manage. Similarly, so those were the user use cases. We are also trying to address IT admin challenges with the solution play overall. So physical device sprawl, we're seeing globally restricted supply chains. There's a lot of demand now for having as limited number of physical PCs or devices handed out. And even if the ones that are handed out, we want them to be not their clients, because it's a lot of it's very tricky to get the devices back, especially if it's a temporary worker or seasonal worker. Bring your own PC strategy, again, something that everyone is looking into as a method of cost cutting. So another big use case that's coming up. The primary ones, especially over the last few years, that we've seen a reason why customers want to talk to us about Windows 365 is actually data security and disaster recovery. So with globally mobilized elastic workforce, as well as situations that happen, as an example, we had the CrowdStrike blackout last year. We actually polled our Windows 365 customers to see how they fared. And everyone had a turnaround time of average between 2 to 3 hours. Versus if you looked at the organizations that might not have been using a virtualized environment, they ended up taking a lot longer. So disaster recovery is a very big use case that's supported by overall endpoint virtualization. So there is demand, there is requirements. If any of these use cases resonate, please shout out. Um, but again, I'll quickly go over the concept, the design principle behind Windows 365, and I hope that you're starting to see how this is fairly different from just a cloud hosted VDI. We're trying to differentiate here by prioritizing the user experience first and foremost. We want to be able to provide the users of virtual endpoints the same experience that you would have with a traditional PC. It's quite tricky to do, but we want to make sure that our product has that exact framework. So, as an example, if you open your traditional PC, you can always see how much battery you have left, because that's your physical PC tightly coupled. To do that on a cloud PC is actually tricky because your device is actually running in the cloud and the battery is on the physical PC. So it needs to be aware of that physical PC that you're operating on. We have those types of features which are granular little things that we are monitoring. We're changing every day. These are the features that you will see. We don't call those things out, but just minor things that we get feedback on and we really enjoy. So this is the framework that we're using for user experiences, very similar to a full Windows experience on a traditional PC. Real differentiator is our admins, though, because if you are an admin who has ever managed or are managing a VDI infrastructure right now, it's a whole set of skill set that you need to have. And end user computing teams are quite separate from that. We want to be able to give you a seamless experience across. So you are using the same framework, the same tools for managing both your traditional physical PC as well as your cloud PCs going forward. So this is all managed by Intune. Predictability of cost is another interesting factor. Traditional VDI vendors and AVD are consumption-based services, so you do have to monitor how much you're using for predictability. With this service, it's a license-based service, so you do have access to those licenses, and you can predict pretty much what the bill is going to be every month. So with that, I wanted to quickly shout out and say Windows 365 is new, and we have been talking about it a bit too much, I think, over the last few years because it's new and we want to spread awareness. But Azure Virtual Desktop is not neglected. It is something that we also continue to work on. We understand that this is for customized flexibility and control. So you may have use cases that you need Azure Virtual Desktop for. We are continuing to work through that. There's a whole roadmap that we have on AVD as well. So we'll keep working through it. But today's session will likely focus a lot more on Windows 365. So again, recapping, Windows 365 Cloud PC, fully managed by Microsoft. It's a SaaS offering. It's personalized. It's secure. It's managed the way you would manage your physical PCs. We have different models of deployment. So depending on who your target audience is, if it's a user that requires 24 by 7 persistent access, we have a license that supports that. If you have frontline workers, we have license that supports that in different deployment modes, and I'll go into the details of this next. But it allows you to address different types of users. We're trying really hard to bring feature parity as well. We understand that app streaming has been a feature request for Windows 365. So you will see that coming out as well. It's right now in preview, and I'll go through that as well. And then all at the end of the day, this is managed by minimum overhead. So you want to keep this super simple, super flexible. AVD, I'm hoping you're already familiar. This product and platform has been in the market for a long time. It does really well. It can pair up really well with other control planes as well. So we have vendors like Citrix and Omnissa that we also partner with. So you could have AVD infrastructure paired up with their control plane if migrations are complicated. This is probably the way to go. But AVD helps you with, supports your customization requests. So if you have specific use cases you want to target and have granular control over those use cases, and you're an expert, this is probably the best way to go. The primary difference between the two platforms is the pricing model. So like I said, it was a licensing model for Windows 365. AVD is a pay-as-you-go model, so it's a consumption-based platform. Quick call out again to this year's Gartner Magic Quadrant. This was released a short while back. We participated in the study with Gartner, which they do with a lot of other VDI vendors as well. Over the last few years, we have seen a pattern of inching ever so slowly away from our competitors, which is a really positive thing that we will celebrate next week at Ignite. The key thing is our hope, Windows 365 AVD, Intune, as well as all the other facilities and all the other sort of features around this. We have a full stack solution, and that's really why we're able to inch ever so closely away from our competition, because whatever your use cases are, and have a chat with Netrix. This is something that Netrix is really good at, is looking at your user personas, looking at your requirements, and identifying what is the best mix, what is the right solution for a given user scenario. So it's best to work with Netrix, best to work with Microsoft sellers, to ensure that you have access to the latest information on the new things that we're releasing, to make sure you have the right information at your hand. Okay, getting into Windows 365 licensing model. So on a higher level, we have two ways that we look at the employee personas, and it's all by persona. So we have enterprise persona, so employees who are probably knowledge workers requiring access to 24 by 7 dedicated PC. You would likely give them a physical PC. You could also give them a cloud PC. This is a pattern that we are offering within Microsoft. For employees who are remote, we are offering them, we can either ship you a device and it will take X amount of days, or you can access a cloud PC. And a lot of them are opting for a cloud PC because it's so easy to continue to use your Mac or whatever other device that you may have at home. So that's the enterprise model. The licensing model is each employee requires a license, so it's a dedicated license for that employee. It's fully personalized, so if you close that PC, just like your traditional PC, your data stays where it was. You can come back to it. If you open it on an Excel file, or if you close it on an Excel file, it'll be there in your back. So same experience as you would have on a physical PC. And I'll go into how you choose the right SKU in the next slide. And then frontline is for our frontline workers. And we know that frontline workers can look different depending on different use cases. You could have shift workers, people who require access to a specific set of hours, and it's repeated over 8 hours, for example. Or you could have task-based workers, people coming in and out and using PC, don't need personalization. We have two methods of deployment that I'll get into in a second as well. The way you would choose is the same for enterprise. I'm just taking enterprise as an example, but between enterprise and frontline, this is the same model. And we have, by design, kept it like you are buying a new PC. Because again, like I said, simplicity. We want to make sure this is as easy as possible for you as IT admins. So you can choose based on how many cores you need, what RAM capacity, what's your primary storage capacity. You would pick a laptop just like this. And so we've kept the licensing model fairly similar. Form factors are literally any form factor: desktop, laptop, tablet, phones. And we also support all OS platforms. So again, completely up to you on how you want to, which device you want to pick. It's agnostic. The interesting ones are frontline mode, the frontline license, and how you would deploy that. So we have two modes. Again, I would love some feedback on this as well. We may have newer slides that we're making on the pricing versus your use cases. We want to really get good understanding on what are the scenarios out there that we are probably addressing or not addressing, or that there's gaps. So I'd love to get the feedback as well. On the dedicated mode, this is for your shift workers. So let's say an employee coming into a call center working around the sun model, for example, 8-hour shifts. You probably have 3 people coming in for their shift and going out. For this, you would use the dedicated mode of deployment, because then you have dedicated, fully personalized Windows experience for 8 hours. Then there is some overlay time, and the next person comes in, logs in, and they have access to their PC. So you only need one license for 3 individuals. So hopefully you have some cost benefit coming out of that. Then there's also shared mode. These are for individuals that probably don't need a fully personalized experience, standardized desktop experience to do specific tasks. Think about a library checkout, for example, like those types of use cases. We are trying to address those with the shared mode, where you can have n number of users. N is infinite, although I would not say have infinite people on the same license. We don't define the n, but we're saying that one license concurrently can be used by one person, but you can assign that license to multiple individuals so that many people can have access to the same SKU. So I'll explain that quickly with this slide, which I need to build, I think. Right. So here's the three typical use cases that we're trying to address. For the full time, it's fairly straightforward. You have 3 users around 24/7. You need 3 licenses. For the part time worker, they have 8-hour shifts. They don't overlap, so you would have one license managing these 3 individuals, assigned to these 3 individuals. For the occasional ones, you would assign that one license to 5 users, for example, and they will have periodic usage. But as you will see, they can't overlap, and that's the concurrency point that I was trying to make. So hopefully this addresses different types of use cases, and I'd love to hear feedback on this as we develop this further. um, like I shared earlier, we're trying really hard for feature parity. We know that remote app streaming is an ask. It has been an ask. And we have launched what's called Windows 365 Cloud App, which allow you to deliver individual applications. This is something that, certain people only require access to few business applications. You could use this license for streaming that directly to their cloud PC environment. This is built on Windows 365 frontline model that I shared before. So it is very similar in deployment, and it is streamlined app-only experience. This is new, so I would caveat that by saying it's in preview, still looking for some feedback and further developing this use case. But this, again, we now have, I think it's going generally available next week, but don't quote me on it just yet. We have more information coming out at Ignite. The last thing I'll mention before passing on to Phil is we still have this discount in place. We came up with this 20% off for all licensing configurations and categories earlier this year. It was very well received, so our organization has decided to extend this to April 30th, 2026. So if you're waiting to trial a couple of licenses and see what model works best for you, if you're trialing something with Netrix team or POCing something, hopefully you take advantage of this program. It's going to continue until April, so please do share your feedback on this as well. And if you have any bigger, if you were finally ready to make a purchase or looking to make a purchase, please do work with your Microsoft reps, because they will help you get the best from a deal perspective as well. So hopefully you are already doing that, but I just wanted to share this discount. So with that, I know you're waiting for like deep dives on advanced features, and that's where Phil comes in. He's way too smart, so I'll pass it on to you, Phil.
Thanks, Nirali. Yeah, I have so many things that I wanted to add to some of the stuff that you'd put through, just because it echoes so much of the feedback we've gotten from customers in implementing this. So excited to share some of this stuff and some of the advancements that have been made. So one of the things Nirali mentioned was those GPU capabilities. So that had been for a while one of those feature disparities between AVD and Windows 365 was having a dedicated GPU for those virtual machines. So Microsoft has now made available some SKUs that have dedicated GPUs specifically for them. So there are 3 main flavors for that. There's the GPU standard, GPU super, and GPU max. So currently they have variations of the amount of dedicated VRAM as well as different hardware allocated to it to support those advanced use cases. Probably the biggest thing to know there is that they're provisioned and licensed just the same way as anything else in Windows 365. So it's a per user per month. You have that ability to provision them on demand. Everything else is pretty much the same. The only caveats are there are a few regional restrictions. It's available primarily throughout the U.S. Other than U.S. Central, but other than that, it's pretty much widely available at this point to be able to be used. Another feature that's been around actually for a little bit, but I found a lot of customers still weren't aware of it, is Windows 365 Switch. So if you've been using Windows 11 for a while in particular, you know that there's that task view option where you can actually have multiple workspaces. So maybe I have all of my Office applications open on this desktop, but then I can switch to a different workspace and I can have, Visual Studio Code or some other application that's running in that area, and I can sort of switch contexts between them. Well, one of the things that was introduced in Windows 11 is that ability to use a cloud PC as that additional workspace. So you can actually just via a mouse click or a simple keyboard shortcut, switch from your local desktop environment to that cloud PC seamlessly as though it's just another workspace on your PC. This is great for developer scenarios. Again, if you could have that workspace be connecting to one of those advanced machines, as well as easy context switching. So one of the use cases that Nurali mentioned that we've also seen a lot of is these acquisitions and bringing other companies on board and needing to give them that day one access to the systems that they're being integrated into. So being able to have that to quickly switch contexts over to that managed desktop environment is really advantageous. Another feature that was also introduced takes it another step further, which is Windows 365 boot. So this is that ability to actually set up a device to boot directly to a cloud PC. So you power the device on, you go through your normal authentication process, but that authentication then takes you to your cloud PC. So you're essentially able to turn any device, if you want to think of turning the device into a thin client, you could think of it that way. But it works really well for those shared or frontline scenarios and being able to switch between user cloud PCs and have it appear as though they're just logging into the local machine. All of the Microsoft security still applies to the login process. So if they need to satisfy MFA prompts and so forth, they can do that. But again, it's as Nurali mentioned, there have been a lot of challenges with hardware availability over the years, and a lot of need to repurpose some of the existing hardware that we do have. And so, outside of the bring your own device scenario, this is another great way to repurpose existing hardware and turn that into an ability to connect to a cloud-based PC. One of the great things that couples with that is the Windows 365 Link device. So this was announced last year and has been available since this past April. But this is a dedicated device specifically for connecting to Cloud PC, connecting to Windows 365. So it's simple, it's purpose-driven, it's very discrete hardware, but very powerful. And it only takes seconds to boot up, and once it's booted up, it can wake from sleep very quickly. But again, the experience is you boot up, you're prompted to log in, and you connect directly to your cloud PC. One of the great things is that you do have physical hardware there, so it can offload some of that high fidelity experience processing, say for Microsoft Teams, still do some of that processing locally so that you're still getting the best user experience. And basically making a more productive use of your time with that device. There's no local data on the device. There's no local applications. There's no local admin user that can be leveraged for any vulnerabilities. It's basically made to be managed alongside any other device in Intune. But again, the idea is that it connects you directly to that cloud PC and gives you some peace of mind that you can use a discrete piece of hardware that is really optimized specifically for that experience. So as we look at some of the scenarios that this tends to work best for, there are a handful here. One is just hot desking. So having hotels in an office space as we're starting to return to work, but maybe we're not having dedicated spaces for everyone. Having those available so that you can just walk up, be able to log in, connect to your cloud PC, do what you need to, and then leave. So any sort of desk-based worker scenario works extremely well. Same thing with things like call centers, anything that's in a shared workspace, labs, receptionists, numerous different scenarios, including frontline and factory workers, which is one place we've started to see a lot more interest in this, being able to connect in those areas where space is at a premium, and this device can simply be, like I said, discreetly put off to the side. So coming out of that, let's take a quick look at how Windows 365 couples with AI. So AI has obviously been transformative across the entire IT landscape lately, and more organizations are beginning to take advantage of these new integrations, but they also need to balance the user enablement of this with the security concerns, and that's a concern that's continuing to grow. So let's look a little bit at how Copilot ties in with Windows 365. So Copilot in Windows 365 is designed to be as secure as the Microsoft 365 services and environment that it runs in. So from an availability standpoint, all of the typical Copilot services you would use on a physical device are available and applied to a Windows 365 device. So Copilot for Microsoft 365 apps, Copilot for Microsoft Teams, Copilot for Windows, everything is available and supported. From a security standpoint, Copilot, Windows, and Windows 365 share that common Microsoft security DNA. So they're built on that comprehensive approach to security, to compliance, and to privacy. Data continues to be encrypted at rest and in transit. Copilot is still, never training on your organizational data. All of your typical identity and access controls continue to be enforced through Microsoft Entra ID. So it basically ensures that all the AI experiences respect your organization's policies and your regulatory requirements, regardless of the fact that you're on a virtual versus a physical PC. So AI doesn't just apply to the users that use the cloud PC. It also extends to the cloud PCs themselves. So the Cloud PC Advisor in Microsoft Intune can be used to identify those opportunities where cost optimization through license usage or benefits to user experience can be realized through awareness of resource-constrained cloud PCs. So seeing that maybe you're under allocated in terms of resources or SKUs for users, and they're seeing a degraded experience, we can see that ahead of time and be able to proactively address that before it really gets out of hand. And then from a security standpoint, again, Windows 365, just like all the Microsoft products, are built with that security DNA in mind, built on those zero trust principles. So when we look at Windows 365, being built with Microsoft Gallery images, those images for Windows 11 are always kept up to date so that any newly provisioned cloud PCs are always installing at the latest patch level. And the ones that are already in there can be automatically enrolled in Windows in auto patch to ensure that they're kept up to date seamlessly as new patches come out. There are numerous data protection controls via Intune policies that can be put in place for the remote desktop client, for the Windows app as you're accessing cloud PC. So, for example, you can ensure that end users aren't able to copy and paste secure data from, if they're running Outlook in the cloud PC, they can't copy that to their local BYOD system and have that outside of data protection. By default, users are not local admins on the device, so that's intentional. We don't want them to have local admin device or admin rights on the device, although you can provision them that way and give them local admin rights to just their cloud PC. But all the other management tools again apply. So if you want to use endpoint privilege management in Intune Suite, or if you want to continue to use LAPS for managing a local admin password, all of those security features still apply to cloud PCs the same way as they apply to your physical devices today. In addition to all those tools, there are, again, some specialized tools within the Microsoft stack and specialized policies and settings, such as specific security baselines for Windows 365 that can be applied to ensure that those devices are kept secure with the specifics and distinctives of a cloud-based PC. Another key one is the integration of single sign-on and passwordless authentication. So being able, say, as organizations continue to roll out things like Windows Hello for Business, being able to authenticate to my local device via Windows Hello for Business, and then as I connect to my cloud PC, not having to be prompted for re-authentication every time I reconnect. So enabling that end-to-end passwordless support is a key feature in securing identities as we access this. So I wanted to dive into a couple quick recent customer successes that we've had with implementation, just to give an understanding of how we've worked with customers to see where this solution fits into their needs. The first of them is an international law firm that we worked with, that had an aging VDI environment. They were coming up on some licensing renewals. The environment wasn't performing to their expectations, and so they needed help with a number of different use cases, and all of those use cases spread across different personas that we were looking at. So some of them needed a dedicated, persistent personal PC. Some of them were using pooled PCs, but they were still maintaining their user profile. Some were using non-persistent pooled VDI. There were a number of different use cases, and so we looked with them to see how could we apply Windows 365 to each of those scenarios, and how would it stack up against the costs that they were currently facing. So as part of that, we implemented pretty much all the flavors that were available at that time: Windows 365 Enterprise, Frontline Dedicated, and Frontline Shared, to address each of those scenarios. So again, the regular Enterprise addressed that persistent personal desktop scenario. There were some Frontline Dedicated scenarios where they had teams of seasonal contractors that would rotate in and out. They would be here for a time, they would leave, and then they would come back, and they needed their profile data and their case data to be available to them when they did come back. They also had a third-party help desk that just needed non-persistent access. It was all browser-based tools, but they had shift workers for that, and they were all coming in at different times from different areas. And so we could take a look at and see what their concurrence usage was, make sure we had enough frontline shared licenses for that, and say it was 50 concurrent users maximum, but we probably had 300 users total that could at any particular time have logged into that. So putting those all together, we were able to successfully eliminate their dependence on that legacy VDI environment. They avoided that licensing renewal cost, as well as the hardware support costs for that on-premise solution. And then another one I wanted to highlight was a financial services client that we worked with. Somewhat similar scenario, other than it was mostly a persistent personal desktop they were looking at. So again, they had an aging VDI environment. In this case, it had been around for quite some time. So some of these virtual machines there was a great deal of entropy, we'll say, in the desktop environment. A lot of unauthorized applications or ad hoc application installs. So the first step in that really was just understanding what their application catalog and personas actually were. So spent quite a while just going through that app rationalization process, defining those personas, and then again matching them up with the correct SKUs to begin to provision that. So as part of that, we were not only able to implement Windows 365, but we were able to help them make that shift from their legacy configuration manager environment into more of an Intune first management environment, get them off of hybrid join and into Entra only, get them to more of a cloud first, cloud managed environment. So part of that was a lot of application work, as I said, moving those applications over. We had been working with them for a long time on that, on applications in general and application packaging. So it made sense for us to help them make that shift. Ultimately, we were able to put together a pilot of about 1,800 users, getting them off of off of the VDI environment and into Windows 365. And prepare them for ultimately a 6,000 user migration into that environment. So overall, as Nirali mentioned, it wasn't just about the user experience, although the hybrid workers immediately noticed a performance difference in Windows 365, but it was also about the operational efficiency that the IT team had gotten and being able to more smoothly manage those devices, ensure that everything was a lot more standardized and a lot more secure. They were able to remove local admin rights from a lot of users as part of that. So ultimately, it was a big success story for them in getting to the point of a more modern cloud first, cloud centric desktop. So as we wrap up here, I wanted to just mention again how Netrix is a partner, how we can work with Microsoft to help if you need assistance in getting Windows 365 stood up in your environment. As a Microsoft partner, with the close relationship we have, we qualify for a lot of funding programs via our specializations, and so one of the funded programs we have right now is the Cloud Endpoints Envisioning and POC. Does very similar to what the last two customer stories I mentioned played out as. So we'll come in and we'll help assess the environment, assess what your needs are, assess what your existing VDI strategy may be, and look to see how that can be adapted into the Microsoft tool set. Help you do that calculation of a return on investment for the shift in licensing, elimination of hardware, things like that. And then work with your team to get things stood up and be able to showcase what it's able to do. One of our things at Netrix is we always like to work alongside. We always like to teach people to fish. So we would be working alongside your resources to ensure that not only do they see the buttons we're pushing, but they understand why we're pushing the buttons we're pushing, and better yet, directing them through pushing the buttons so that they understand how they can manage this going forward and how it will make their lives easier and make their users happier. So if you want to connect with us, you can contact us at info@netrixglobal.com. As I mentioned at the outset, we'll also have information that will come out at the end of this presentation afterwards for accessing the recording, and you'll be able to contact us through that as well. And with that, I will stop and see if we have any questions. So now is your chance, everyone. Fire away. Give another second here to see if we have anything.
I think we have one, Phil,
Okay.
and this one might be for you. So, how does Windows 365 leverage AI to optimize cloud PC performance?
So on the back end in the service, it is looking at the usage statistics on it. It's looking at connection quality. It's looking at percentage usage of the resources, and then using that to determine whether is this a one moment spike, or are there a consistent pattern of overutilization or underutilization of the resources, so that it can make the recommendations as far as whether or not it should be um, leveled up or leveled down in terms of license SKU.
And I think there's another one. So, what are the key security and compliance benefits of using Windows 365 Cloud PCs in BYOD scenarios? One that I think we've addressed quite a bit is the fact that you don't have anything on the physical PC itself. So,
Mm-hmm.
there's no company resources on the physical PC. But then you can also apply all the other security and compliance policies that you would traditionally apply to a PC. Phil,
Yeah,
what do you
yeah,
think?
correct. One of the most difficult things with security is always the physical security from the device standpoint. So not having that device, Windows 365 can't be left on the seat on the subway or on a bus, right? We don't have to worry about somebody pulling the hard drive out of Windows 365 and dropping it in another device, like we've done BitLocker drive encryption for. So you just have that interface, that screen sharing, keyboard sharing, and whatnot between the physical device you're on and where all your data actually is on the cloud PC. And that's where those controls around cut, copy, and paste, blocking screenshots, things like that. That's where those all come into play to ensure that there's even more security around that.
I don't see any more.
All right.
Going once.
All right. Well, thanks so much, Nirali, for joining me on this. It's been a great conversation and lots of great info, and I can't wait until next week for even more stuff to come out. So appreciate partnership with you guys, and look forward to continuing to work together.
Me too. Thanks for having me. This was fun.
All right. Thanks, and take care
Take
all.
care.
Bye.